I will survive till the end. Blood Extermination Academy. Come on, get him. Yeah, show those bastards who's in charge. Damn it, my little kidney is about to explode. I want to take a leak, but my eyes won't let me. In the heart of a major city, there was a small, popular gaming cafe. Tonight buzzed with life. There was a mix of cheers and curses swirling like a storm. Several youngsters crowded around a teen. He had inky dark hair and a grin sharp enough to cut steel. Good looking. That was the first thought when seeing the youngster. There was a lollipop dangling lazily from his lips. The lollipop's sweetness was a stark contrast to the chaos the young man unleashed on screen. His fingers danced across the keyboard, each stroke creating a melody of destruction. He's just too fast. Just watching the display made the crowd dizzy. The young boy's character, a berserker in a famous MMORPG game, was ruthlessly crushing the heroes. Fools, the youth muttered underneath his breath. In the game, one could choose to be a villain, a hero, or an ordinary. There were no NPCs, since even those in the stores were players who chose to be merchants and store owners. For the dark-haired boy, his favorite thing to do was go after so-called righteous heroes. Huh, the youth sneered. Heroes. Such a wimpy title. Many times they committed crimes in the name of the greater good. Get him! Destroy that hero! Around him the crowd surged closer, their faces lit with awe and excitement. The boy was no mere player. He went under the name I Loathe He Idiots, a legend and a villain. To some he was a genius, to others a scourge. However, his fame was undeniable. Whenever he was online, thousands and millions of people would crowd to watch online. While he played, his friends acted like professional bodyguards. All right, break it off, one of them barked at an overeager fan. That's right, back off! The genius needs space to breathe. You there. No autographs today. Back off. If you're fortunate, next time you'll be granted a chance by fate. Everyone can watch from a distance. Don't push or hit the genius. Give him some space. Come on now, let the genius work. The boy's friends were rude and direct, but no one cared or felt offended. Soon, the boy ended today's adventure by cleaning up one of the top 10 ranked heroes on the server and their lackeys. Whoa! The cafe erupted in cheers and groans. Victory! I Loathe the Idiots has killed them all! Foo. How can 18 people ambush a single person but end up all dying? Legendary. As expected, he is just too strong. Too good. His methods of killing them all are still as brutal as ever. Hey, he looks our age. I wonder what school he's in. Finishing his gaming segment, Levon's eyes dimmed underneath his mask. As per usual, the cafe manager allowed him to exit through a more private door. They were long-time customers of the cafe, so much so that the manager often gave them staff uniforms to escape with. Many want pictures. It was sad to say that the crowd of people who were waiting at the front once again missed the legendary gaming idol and his friends. Seeing his silent state, the friends around began to worry. Brother Levon, are you still thinking of the results of the national examinations? They felt it must be that. Don't worry about them, Brother Levon. So what if your grades fell far below the passing line? Don't forget that the rest of us barely passed. Yeah, even if we go to a higher institute of learning, who is to say what we will become in the future? We ... Enough! The boy, Levon, took out the lollipop in his mouth. His voice never raised an octave, yet it released a foggy slither that curled around its listeners. Have I become so pitiful that something somewhere in your minds would tell you I need sympathy from you? The boy paused mid-sentence, slowly sweeping his eyes over them one by one. You made it, but proud. So, enough with the belittling. His aura, coupled with his words, made their bodies freeze up on their own. Yet, they were touched by Levon's encouragement. He didn't butter them up, nor make exaggerated remarks. "You all did good. Do not belittle yourselves around me. Besides," putting the lollipop back in his mouth, Levon began walking away. "With the money I make through gaming, it's enough to get me a house in Granville." Granville was the second most luxurious housing region in the city. Everyone wanted a home in that turf. "Brother Levon." The boys lowered their heads, knowing he was right. So what if their brother Levon wouldn't be going to school? People went to school to learn how to make money. However, their brother Levon already makes 5 to 15 times an average person's monthly salary. What a joke. They shouldn't be worried about him. Rather, it's them who will have to work hard now that they've graduated from high school with mediocre passing grades. Levon never stopped to look back. "Don't get all soft with me here. Do I look like your girlfriends? If you're done, go home." These boys lived in regions closer to each other, while he lived in a completely different area within the city. It was already 9 p.m. Levon was silent. The night was unsurprisingly dull as he walked the lonely path he often took. He was late for supper, but who in his family cared? Reaching his front door and hearing the boisterous laughter from within, Levon sighed. "Sometimes," he muttered to himself, "I wonder if I would have been better off as an orphan." Holding the doorknob, he was about to turn it sideways, but then, "W-H-O, is it?" There was a flicker in the corner of his eyes. Levon abruptly turned around, his senses sharpening like blades. Silence was the only thing that stared him in the face. Is it just my imagination? Or am I being followed? The door creaked open, and Levon stepped in. Home sweet home? No one acknowledged him. Rather, they had disgusted faces while crowded around their youngest son, a dubbed child prodigy. One look around, and any stranger will find frames on the walls of this golden child, and none of him. This was the son they were most proud of. Locke Belmont, Levon's younger brother of 3 years, had skipped grades twice since young. According to his age, he could be taking the national examinations 2 to 3 years later. But as the genius that he was hailed to be, he took special examinations to skip grades. Levon had a hunch the little monster did it so he could be in the same grade as his older brother, him. There was not a shred of doubt in Levon's mind that Locke only did this to spite him. Where did the enmity come from? Levon didn't know. But as far back as he could recall, his little brother loved competing with him. Now that he thought of it, his parents weren't always so mean to him. It all started from the moment his little brother could speak. If he had to count how many times he had been set up by Locke, he would probably say 100. It's not that he couldn't prove himself innocent, but his parents seemed to believe anything Locke said. Even with proof, they would reject it in a heartbeat if it meant admitting that Locke was wrong. Levon felt tired when it came to this family. When he was younger, his grades were also great. However, after numerous failed attempts in trying to get his parents' love and affection, he woke up from his silly nightmare. As time went on, he became known to many as a delinquent. Many also forgot about his former academic glory. It's been 8 years since he stopped caring, and he had to say it made life easier. No expectations, no disappointments. It won't be long before he moves out and lives on his own. His parents had no clue he had been secretly making money for himself. And even if they did, so what? Levon immediately headed to the kitchen and picked up the lid on a pot. Sure enough, there was nothing left for him. It has always been like this. He grabbed a cup of instant noodles, microwaved it, and began slurping fast while trying not to roll his eyes. There, his mother and father were leaning close to their darling Locke, ensuring he had everything he needed. Juice? Check. More meat? Sure, coming right up. What? Do you want the leftover sponge cake in the fridge as dessert? Then your wish is their command. Eat up, my precious baby. Who would have known you would get a 716 in the national exams? Goodness, You ranked 9th in the entire country, and you're 3 years younger than most of the examinees. Incredible, wasn't it? 750 was the maximum score for the national exams if one scored 100% in all their papers. The highest scorer this year had a 744. To be 9th in the entire country wasn't a small feat to accomplish. It was indeed commendable, especially since Locke skipped grades twice. "That's our Locke," his father said proudly before throwing yet another disgusted glare Levon's way. "Humph. Our Locke is not like some people who embarrass the family by scoring a 54 in the exams." "What a disgrace," his father inwardly concluded. "If the highest score is 744 and he scored just 54, then he must not have hope in society. Waste. How did I ever give birth to such a shameful thing?" The old man had several knots in his belly. His thoughts were obvious to everyone seated. Now, dear," Mrs. Belmont advised. "Let's not ruin the mood by mentioning such parasites in our home. In 3 weeks, our Locke here will be going to the most prestigious institution in the country, the Trelardis Institute of Higher Learning." "That's true. He will be going in with a full scholarship and many other perks. Don't forget the country awarded him with 15,000 for taking the 9th spot." "Yeah, the dean of that institute also awarded him an additional 7,000 that'll be given to him once he gets on school grounds. Foo. Our little boy hasn't even gotten a professional job yet and he's already making so much money." "Of course, honey. He's definitely not like some parasites that only suck us dry." It was another normal day for Levon. They praised and praised Locke so much that their meal had already turned cold. And in a place where his parents couldn't see it, Locke gave him a provocative smile different from the fake, charming, and innocent smile he wore every day. Childish. Levon rolled his eyes for the umpteenth time, not caring at all about how wiggly his parents proved to be. He was serious. They were wiggling like worms, almost making him spew his noodles in laughter. What a delusional pair. He had no feelings for them. All done. With his instant noodles in his belly, Levon prepared to head for the bath. But then he raised his head and caught yet a strange flicker swiftly through the window. After taking a bath, Levon headed to his room underneath the stairway. For months now, he couldn't shake off the feeling he was being watched. A person like him grew far more sensitive to such things. A normal person would grow anxious and afraid of leaving their home after having such a feeling for months. But for him... Levon calmly fell into slumberland, with a particularly menacing grin on his lips. The night swept by quite fast. Levon woke up as usual, making his own breakfast and heading out for a run. Everything seemed as it should be, except for the rather vintage-looking vehicle now parked outside his home. 2 guards stood guard beside the vehicle. Looking through one of the house windows, his line of sight instantly fell on the peculiar figure his parents were entertaining. "It's probably for Locke," Levon concluded, shrugging without a care. However, when he stepped in, his parents' abrupt fake smiles made his eyes turn cold. "Ah, there is our little Levon. Come. This gentleman is here to see you. So sit." Levon looked in scrutiny. The visitor wore a most extraordinary suit, well-tailored and crisp. The man looked no older than 27, and wore slightly tinted glasses and a jovial smile that did not reflect in his eyes. Levon sneered. His parents might be fooled, but he knew there was something odd about the man. So, the big question now was, why is he here? Giving one last glance at the many bodyguards outside their home, Levon calmly closed the door behind him. He stood nonchalantly, with both hands in his pockets, in wait. "You disrespectful boy. Is this how we taught you to welcome guests?" "That's right. Your mother asked you a question. Huh? Still not answering. Where did you learn such manners from?" "Sir, don't mind him. You know we did our best. Sadly, he has failed to keep up, unlike his younger brother. His parents thought they did a pretty good job with their fake smiles, but their eyes betrayed them. Because of the silence from the stranger and Levon, they subconsciously felt the need to speak, to fill in the void, as they say. You boy, this fine gentleman has traveled from afar to solve your problems, and this is the way you treat him. Sir, I apologize for our unruly son's behavior. Please be magnanimous and forgive him just this once. Blah 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 blah. Like birds, the two chirped away about nothing. However, the stranger and Levon were having a silent staring competition of their own. Levon chuckled dangerously. They say you are here to solve my worries, but excuse my oddity, seeing as I didn't send out any requests, nor did my brother or my parents. Levon didn't speak further, but had already gotten his point across. No one submitted any admission forms on his behalf. So wasn't it odd for him to show up out of the blue? You! His mother was about to lash out, but was stopped by the man's reassuring smile. It's okay, Mrs. Belmont. I don't mind. Levon rolled his eyes at his mother. Of course she wouldn't mind. It's not her who will take him away, but him. Walking towards the meal table, Levon took a seat. So did the man, unhurriedly. The air around them was swollen with uneasiness, yet they both wore looming smiles. As for the stranger, his smile bloomed even brighter than Levon's. Now then, let's talk, shall we? Reaching into his suit's hidden inner pockets, the man took out a letter. Allow me to introduce myself, he began. I am H.W. Lacroft, a member of the B.E. Academy. What? A school. His parents' eyes almost flew out of their sockets, wondering if there was some sort of mistake. Mr. Lacroft? We don't mean to be rude, but are you sure you've got the right person? His parents were confused. How can this useless child get such a chance? Seeing Lacroft's suit and aura that dripped with money, both parents felt more and more that it shouldn't be Levon who gets such an opportunity. Even if their youngest son didn't want it, it shouldn't be up to this parasitic son of theirs to take it. Yes, Mr. Belmont nodded. Mr. Lacroft, don't worry. We know you're mistaken. You must be looking for my other son, Locke, who did marvelously well in the national exams. Why don't you wait here and we'll go call? No need. Lacroft's voice was engraved with authority. Levon's parents felt an underlying threat from him. Well, they must be hallucinating, especially when seeing Lacroft's friendly smile. The man almost had the smallest pair of eyes they had ever seen. It resembled two single lines drawn on paper. He had the sort of crescent eyes that always looked closed. They were so crescent-shaped and small that it was hard to tell whether he was annoyed or not. However, if he was still smiling, then it should be all right, right? Calmly taking off his glasses, Lacroft turned his face toward the duo. I assure you, I'm here for the right person. And once again, I assure you both that I'm a member of an academy approved and well supported by our generous government. But it's not what you think. Eh? Both parents frowned, confusion evident on their faces. It's not? No. Lacroft's lips raised even more in mischief. B.E. Academy. Its full meaning is B.E. Excellent. In other words, it's a place that takes in delinquents and those with little to no chances of making a good living in society. We do this in hopes of turning their bleak futures around. A school for delinquents, run by the government? Lacroft nodded slyly. You may not know, but the number of delinquents in our proud country is becoming too rapid. We do not need people turning into future thugs and gangsters. So, understand that this is a call for action to make better use of them. Mr. and Mrs. Belmont, smart people like yourselves can foresee the future if a talentless boy like your son stays at home forever. No? Like a devil whispering in their ears, both parents turned pale with the imagination of having a drunk or no money-making son live with them into old age. Just look at one of their neighbors. The old woman's son is still living with her at 45. She does everything. Gardens, sells tomatoes in a local market, pays the bills, and slaves away for that worthless man. Yet he remains ungrateful and often steals her money to gamble. The thought caused a shiver to crawl up their vertebrae. They heard the man was also a delinquent when he was younger. So if what this man is saying is true, then won't their useless and talentless son turn out the same? No! Be Excellent Academy, BE Academy. The words sounded like a miraculous solution to throw the useless vermin out for good. They were even thinking of how to move their family far away once he got to the academy. What if he escapes or returns to mess up their lives? And what about their youngest son's future? Say no more. As Levon's legal guardians, they have already approved of his going, and nothing could change their minds. Thinking that their family of 3 will soon live together without any further disturbance from Levon, they almost jumped in celebration. In their hearts, Lecroft was their savior. Well, the conversation below was quite interesting. Locke had been listening keenly above the stairs with an arrogant smile. BE Academy, huh? After hearing the name, he quickly searched online and found more information about it. Sure enough, what Lecroft said was right. BE Academy existed thanks to the government's support. It vaguely said it was only there to benefit the masses. There were reviews stating that those who go there are those who end up as garbage men or street sweepers. Indeed, they were there to work for society's benefit. This much was enough to please Locke and put his worries aside. After all, he didn't want his brother to do better than him in life. From young till now, he has always wanted everything for himself. He wanted to be the only child of his parents, so he made himself their only child. And even if he didn't end up well in life, their inheritance should belong to him. He had no thought of sharing it with anyone else. They might not be wealthy, but the house and the money in their bank accounts were enough to leave him blissful for a few years. Mine, it's all mine. Fading away into the darkness, Locke headed back to his room with satisfaction. Such places that took in delinquents were more or less like prisons to straighten their behaviors. But so what? The more pain Levon feels, the happier he will be. Downstairs, Levon hadn't uttered a single word. His parents had rushed to finalize the matter, even sending Lecroft out with blooming smiles. Only when the door was shut, their expressions turned cold. Listen here, boy. We brought you into this world and can take you back. As usual, looking at your ugly face, I can't tell if you want to go or not. But who cares? Unfortunately for you, we are your legal guardians. So if we say you're going, then you're going. 3 days later, in a foul and dark room, one boy stood over another seated in a chair. The chair the other sat on was already swallowed by the sea of filthy clothes scattered around. The boy on the chair wore thick goggles. He smelled utterly foul, yet the other boy standing seemed unfazed. Tap, 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 tap. The tapping noise from the keyboard echoed for an eternity. What the hell? The boy seated felt a layer of sweat clog his pores. Soon the boy almost flipped his keyboard, cursing excessively. Son of a gun! What kind of shit have you gotten yourself into, Levy? Levy was the boy's nickname for Levon. Levon narrowed his eyes at the computer screen. Error! 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 All they could see on the comopter's screen were countless pop-up icons saying the same thing. So you can't hack it? Hack it? I'll be lucky if I don't get caught. The 17-year-old speaker was shaking so much he couldn't help taking out a cigarette. Never in his years of extreme hacking had he faced such a dangerous situation. Who was he? They called him the #1 genius in the country's hacker alliance. They called him the Squid because his hands reached everywhere at once. Many think he is a middle-aged man, not knowing he is a brat who just turned 17 a month ago. He has been hacking since he was 13, building himself up throughout the years. How he and Levon met was quite funny. However, this wasn't the time to be reminiscing on the past. Squid blew out a whiff of smoke, going on another cursing rampage after seeing his frozen screen. He prided himself in saying there was no place in the world he couldn't hack into. But who would have known there were mountains higher than his? Who would have known there were even more stronger hackers out there hidden in the government's forces? Sigh. He had a terrible churn in his belly. I'll tell you now, bro. That letter is as true as the blood in my veins. Squid blew out another puff of smoke. Did you see the folder earlier? The school's name is under that classified folder. I've never seen so many parameters put in place just for a school. The worst part of it all is that the coding and everything else is completely new to me. Funny, right? I, the top hacker in the country, can't recognize this coding. Squid looked like a patient on his dying bed. A little dramatic, aren't we? Levon swirled the lollipop in his mouth with a bored look. Looking at the code, he understood the gravity of things. In other words, I can't run, right? Run? Shh. You've been marked. You have no choice but to go. It's just that I still don't get why you levy. Or don't tell me you believe that vague crap the Lacroft guy said to your parents about helping rid the streets of delinquents. Believe? No, I don't. However, I do believe their official website, although vague, has one truth to it. This time it was Squid's turn to be confused. Truths? Which is? Levon stared at Squid with a large grin. The only truth here is that they serve the masses. Silence. Okay, his friend has lost it. Squid was taken aback after observing his friend deeply. Why do I get the feeling you had no intentions of running? That would be crazy, right? The corner of Levon's lips curled. Clap, clap, calp. It seems you're not too stupid. Run? Him? No, no, no. On the contrary, he never had the inkling to run since he saw Lacroft. And now, after getting Squid's take on the so-called BE Academy, he felt like thanking them for making his life a little more interesting. Even though he was a famous gamer, nothing truly intrigued him in life. Even the little actions his brother took against him were not taken seriously in his eyes. It was like a fly buzzing in his eyes. How many times does he have to say he doesn't care about them? Talk less of wanting their love. A truck could fly out and crush them to death and he still wouldn't bat an eye. There was nothing he wanted from them. Not the so-called love, not money. At present, he's far wealthier than all of them combined. Initially, he planned to move out eventually and live a dull but wealthy life. But all that changed the moment he saw Lacroft. What does it feel like to be targeted by a hungry wolf? Well, Levon thought that the feeling was quite good. I give up. Squid was dumbfounded, shaking his head wryly. As always, you never cease to amaze me, Levy. If he were in Levon's shoes, he wouldn't feel happy about being followed and targeted so much. Aren't you scared? Knowing you can't fight the government, this means your fate will be compounded by whatever they have in store for you. Squid observed Levon's silence and fell quiet. If he were Levon, he would be worrying to death. However, his good friend was smiling from molar to molar, as if possessed by some evil spirit. No matter how many times he sees Levon's face that showed a fire of excitement, it always looked like the face of a naturally born villain. Walking Levon to the door, Squid said his final goodbyes to his good buddy. Who knows when they'll see next? It would be great if I could give you one of my miniature tracking devices. But with how much security they've put on that fonder, I bet they'll find it in under a minute. Then this is it. Good luck, Levy. Well... A dark chuckle escaped Levon's lips. Thanks, but don't need it. Time trickled down like a leaky faucet, and after carefully sneaking into his home undiscovered, Levon made a list of things he couldn't do without. Only bring essentials, no electronics or clothes allowed, apart from the ones you're wearing. The rules were straightforward. Then, there was a list of things that were not considered to be essential. Would you look at that? They weren't even allowed to bring their identity cards. Toothbrushes were also not considered essential. Levon licked his lips with interest and a hint of confusion. They did say to bring essentials, but what is essential to one person might not be the same to another. So the real question here is what they will allow and what they won't. Is it all standardized? Are the rules the same for everyone? Levon swirled the lollipop in his mouth deeply. A towel and underwear were good and all. But what about his favorite lollipop? Does he look like someone who can do without it? Was he addicted to it? Yes. To him, this was the most essential item he could think of. If they investigate him, they should also be aware of its importance to him. They should at least be smart enough to understand that much. With his thoughts organized, Levon spent the following 8 days preparing. He kept his phone, ID card, and other important cards with Squid. Should he return, Squid would have left clues on how to get the items out of the bank's safety deposit box. Should he not return, everything will be Squid's. They were both wealthy enough to not have greed for each other's properties. It's not the first time he has left his things with Squid, especially for him who lived in a house of enemies always searching for his things. Squid was one of the few people Levon trusted. Ah. Levon ruffled his hair, somewhat stumped by the Academy's meaning behind the word essential. Well, there was no use worrying about what he couldn't understand. In time, everything will be clear, no? Closing his eyes, Levon fell into deep slumber. Then, several more days flew by. And with every passing day, his parents watched him like hawks. Even when heading for the bathroom, they would tell him to do his business with the door open, lest he flees out the window instead. The closer the D-Day, the greater their paranoia. Finally, the day for departure arrived. Bang, bang, bang. His door was hit so hard the room particles of dust sprayed out. Well, he was in a room underneath the stairs, a narrow one at that. Well, well, well. A familiar voice rang. Seeing him carry his backpack out of his room, Locke mockingly, "Locke. Brother, this goes without saying, but I hope you never come back." "Wasn't planning to," Levon replied emotionlessly. "Heh." Locke sneered, not believing him at all. "It's good that you know your place. Just make sure you mean what you say." Adjusting his stance, he looked down the stairway at Levon like an aristocrat looking at their servant. "Goodbye, brother. This is the last time I will call you that." Levon took his bath and headed to the dining. She even cooked? It would be a lie to say he wasn't shocked when seeing the meal laid out for him. It almost looked like a bribe. A bribe telling him to go far away and never return. Levon's eyes twinkled with amusement. They didn't even give him ample time to swallow and enjoy his meal. Everyone was rush. From there, he led him out the house. "Listen up," his father began. "You'll be following us closely, and no daredevil thoughts while in the car. Understood?" Levon shrugged and sat nonchalantly in the back seat. Not surprisingly, his father joined him at the back while his mother drove. His father was confident that if he tried to pull any stunts, he, the father, a fully grown adult, would knock Levon cold if he had to. Levon was unfazed by their defensive attitudes. As for where they were going, it's true that the Academy's letter stated that the school would cover travel expenses. However, it also stated that all students had to appear at the rendezvous point. So, to ensure he didn't run away, his parents happily volunteered to take him there. Looking at the many passers-by, Levon still couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. How diligent. Well, the day proved busy in the end. Standing at a bus stop, several people came and went, leaving several youngsters behind. Some parents stood at the bus stop, ensuring their children didn't run away. Other parents stayed in their vehicles across the streets like detectives scouting a suspect's home. Levon took everything in. Looks like I'm not the only one with so-called anxious parents. Time trickled down like water the longer they waited. Then, 2 particularly dull and ordinary-looking buses stopped at the bus stop with the initials BEA on it. This was it. Several parents screamed loudly in their hearts and began shooing their children in. How come you, who always makes the loudest noise, has nothing to say now? Follow your delinquent friends in. Hurry up and get in. Do you think I have all day here to watch you leave? Levon's parents were also amongst those rushing their children off. They looked at the other parents and many delinquents heading in, feeling more and more that they made the right choice. However, even after all teenagers hopped on the buses, they didn't leave until they personally confirmed the buses had no other stops except for their final destination. This news also made many parents happy. Phew, at least their children won't run off at the next stop if it's their final destination. After pushing their children in, they happily watched the buses drive off in satisfaction. Sure enough, the government is really good, many parents thought, feeling a burden lifted from their shoulders. However, the merry feelings they felt couldn't be shared by the majority aboard the buses. Hey, what do you think we should do? A girl with a luscious body and a worried face whispered to a boy next to her. Hey now, aren't you thinking of how to escape too? The moment her words echoed, many quickly leaned closer with perplexed faces too. We are us too. So, you got a plan? As delinquents, they had already begun hatching what they considered to be a dangerous plot. Give up, suggested an unknown boy calmly reading a book with a calm, stoic expression. With steady movement, he turned a page and leaned elegantly into his seat. Take a look around. These buses are designed for prisoner transportation. From the outside one can't tell, but the windows are all barred. In addition, there was a clear, hard divide between them and the driver. Many hastily looked around after hearing the elegant boy reading the boy. With the widespread panic, it was clear to pick out the hens from the golden geese. Levon calmly took note of those who hadn't moved an inch since they sat. According to my calculations, there should be 53 of us on this bus. Only 5 others stayed unbothered when Bookboy spoke. Bookboy, including these 5, make up 6 golden geese. Levon analyzed with a smile, not knowing the other 6 did the same. In fact, each of these 6 had arrived at the exact conclusion. Escape was futile. But it seems the many chickens on board thought otherwise. What the hell? Who are you trying to frighten? Prison bus? We are underage and not adults yet. Yeah, just because you can't escape doesn't mean we can't. In a blink of an eye, things got too rowdy. Fools. Leaning close to a window, another calm girl felt annoyed. There are 7 empty seats. If you wanted to escape so badly, you should have done that before today, just like these missing people. That said, can you all just shut up already? Some of us here are trying to sleep. At this moment, the air became so brittle it could snap any moment. They say when people are panicked, they're also prone to anger quicker. Vixen, who the hell do you all think you are to look down on us? Yeah, what's wrong with us having hope? Don't you all realize how fucking screwed we will be if we don't get out? They didn't even know what awaited them, but the fear they felt now made them want to flee. Humph. Everyone, don't listen to these suicidal maniacs. I don't know you all, but since we're all tagged as delinquents, then we've all got some skills up our sleeves. Yeah, he's right. Who are we? Delinquents. I say we keep trying, even to the last moment. If wars in history were given up so easily, where would we be today? That's right. We won't listen to their negativity. All we have to do is get the bus driver to somehow pull over and open the doors before we make our move. I can numb his leg by hitting a particular point. That's the only place I know how to numb. It's pretty good. Hey, I used to be a good actor, always knowing how to skip gym class with a bad bellyache. Me too. I got my bastard teacher fired after I framed the old hag without a way out. Wait, I have an even better idea. For our freedom, can anyone sacrifice a little blood? Once I pretend I have bad cramps, the driver will definitely stop. It works every time. Come on, guys, if we put our heads together, we can overcome anything. That's it? Poofed! Levon almost laughed out loud, listening to their idiotic plans. Then he yawned, adjusting his position, folding his arms across his chest and closing his eyes to rest. It was quite odd, but he suddenly felt very sleepy. Hold on? Instantly, Levon sensed something was wrong, and he wasn't the only one. Sleeping gas! One of the delinquents cried. Everyone, protect yourself! Everyone! Too late. They had inhaled too much already. Oh my God. Raw panic and desperation yanked hard on them, overriding their senses and their bodies. What's going on? Organ donation, trafficking, or kidnap? Help! Help! Many slapped the windows as hard as they could with trembling bodies that twisted with gloom. But cry as hard as they could, no one outside could hear or see them. Who can tell them what these windows were made of? The windows were incredibly thick, tinted, and barred. They banged and banged, the red veins in their sclera now growing thicker as it stretched towards their pupils. Help! Help! Many felt woozy, swaying from side to side in horror. Who can save them now? Fuzz. A sound many couldn't hear, sprayed out from tiny holes in the floors, causing many to fall. Bang! They were so deep in sleep that some didn't feel the pain of banging their chins, foreheads, and other body parts. Do their kidnappers not care at all of the state of their organs, the body parts they wish to harvest? Blood oozed, but the silence only grew stronger. The driver drove despite the many banging noises from the fallen youths. When the banging stopped, he smiled. Gripping his steering wheel with his gloved hands, the driver yanked off his rubber face suit, revealing his true appearance to be a 34-year-old burly man. He had an unmistakable slash mark that ran across his nose, and no eyebrows. Pressing a button, a small screen popped out of a hidden compartment. The man clicked on the screen severally, having a good view of the youngsters behind him. "They're out," the driver announced through the mic in his ear. "Lights out. They're out. Done. All clear." Responses from other drivers flooded in. "Do you think there are only 2 buses in charge of today's operation?" The vehicles calmly drove to a car wash station, allowing water to drip over their vehicles. Nodding to their inside men in the station, the cameras did not capture the scene of their vehicles changing color when the water fell. With a new disguise, they headed towards the old cemetery. In silence, hundreds of men flooded out of the main cemetery building, taking the passed-out youngsters inside and underground. A hidden waterway revealed itself, with 6 smaller but peculiar circular submarines ready for travel. All workers moved with lightning speed. It took very little time to get all youngsters boarded up. This was goodbye then. The pilots nodded heavily to the rest before sinking deep down below. 1, 2, 3. They were gone. The bus drivers turned around, slowly exiting the scene. "How many do you think will survive?" "Who knows?" The driver with the scar across his nose paused with a slight smile on his lips. "It's hard to say.